Jason Carter had spent the last 6 years surviving, not living. Every morning began before sunrise. He prepared breakfast for his 7-year-old daughter Lily, packed her lunch, braided her hair as best as a father could, and rushed her to school before working double shifts at a small construction company. Nights were even harder. After putting Lily to bed, he often accepted extra repair jobs just to keep the lights on in their tiny rented apartment. His wife had passed away after a long illness, leaving Jason with mountains of medical bills, and a promise he refused to break, to give Lily a life filled with love, even if he had to sacrifice everything else. That promise became his purpose. One rainy Friday evening, Jason finished repairing a broken water pipe for an elderly widow. On his drive home, he noticed a luxury black sedan sitting sideways on an empty mountain road. Its hazard lights blinked weakly. A young woman stood outside in the pouring rain, completely soaked. Her expensive heels had sunk into the mud, and her phone had no signal. Jason slowed his old pickup. Most people would have kept driving. He didn't. He stepped out with an umbrella. "Are you all right?" he asked. The woman looked exhausted. "My car won't start." Jason spent nearly 40 minutes under freezing rain, fixing the damaged battery cable. When the engine finally roared back to life, she smiled with genuine relief. "I don't know how to thank you." Jason simply nodded. "Drive carefully." She offered money. He refused. She offered her business card. He smiled politely. "You might need it someday." He shook his head. "I only helped because someone would help my daughter if she were ever stranded." Then he drove away without asking her name. He never realized she watched his truck disappear until it became a tiny dot beyond the hills. Her name was Victoria Lawson, CEO of one of the country's largest technology companies, one of the youngest billionaires in America. But Jason never knew. Hours later, another storm rolled across the city. Jason reached home just after midnight. As he carried sleeping Lily from the truck into their apartment building, he heard footsteps behind him. Someone was struggling to walk. It was the same woman. Her luxury sedan had broken down again several streets away after hitting debris left by the storm. Every nearby hotel had lost electricity. Her phone battery had died. She looked completely defeated. Jason hesitated only a second. "It's not much," he said quietly. "But my daughter and I have a spare room." Victoria stared in disbelief. "You'd trust a stranger?" Jason smiled. "Someone once trusted me when I needed it most." Inside the tiny apartment, everything was simple but spotless. Family photos covered one wall. Children's drawings decorated the refrigerator. Lily's handmade birthday cards sat proudly on the bookshelf. Nothing expensive. Everything meaningful. Victoria hadn't seen a home filled with this much warmth in years. Jason cooked grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. It wasn't gourmet, but after the terrible day she'd had, it tasted like comfort. Lily woke briefly, smiled sleepily, and hugged the stranger without hesitation. "You can sleep in Mommy's room," she whispered innocently. Victoria nearly cried. She hadn't been hugged without expecting something in return for a very long time. Jason gave her one of his clean, oversized flannel shirts and sweatpants, because her clothes were soaked. She thanked him before quietly closing the guest room door. For the first time in months, she slept peacefully. Morning sunlight slipped through the curtains. Jason woke early as always. He quietly prepared pancakes for Lily before work. As he carried fresh coffee toward the kitchen, he froze. Standing near the window was the mysterious woman. She wore his blue flannel shirt. Her long hair was still slightly damp. She looked completely different from the confident executive he'd spent and briefly met beside the road. Now she simply looked human. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Victoria smiled. "I forgot what peace feels like." Jason looked away awkwardly. "I hope the shirt fits." She laughed softly. "It may be the most comfortable thing I've ever worn." Lily ran into the kitchen. "Miss Pretty." She hugged Victoria again. Without thinking, Victoria lifted the little girl into her arms. Something inside her changed instantly. During breakfast, Jason apologized for the small apartment. Victoria looked around. "I've stayed in penthouses worth $20,000 a night." She paused. "I've never felt this at home." Jason simply smiled. He had no idea who she really was. After breakfast, Victoria borrowed Jason's phone to contact her driver. Within 30 minutes, 3 black SUVs stopped outside the apartment building. Security agents rushed toward the entrance. Neighbors stared from every window. Jason frowned. "What is going on?" One of the security officers spoke first. "Good morning, Ms. Lawson." Jason looked at Victoria. She slowly nodded. "I'm sorry. My name is Victoria Lawson, the CEO of Lawson Global." Silence filled the apartment. Jason couldn't believe it. The woman eating pancakes in his kitchen, the woman wearing his old shirt, was one of the richest women in the country. She expected Jason to react like everyone else, to ask for money, to ask for favors. Instead, he simply handed her a lunch bag. "You forgot breakfast for the road." Victoria stared at the homemade sandwiches. No one had packed lunch for her since her grandmother died. Her eyes filled with tears. Before leaving, she turned toward Jason. Then she quietly said the words that left him completely frozen. "I don't think I was stranded on that road by accident. I think life was trying to introduce me to the kindest man I've ever met." Jason stood speechless. She climbed into her waiting SUV. But neither of them realized that would not be their last meeting. Only 3 days later, Jason's construction company announced massive layoffs. Hundreds of workers lost their jobs. Jason was one of them. His savings would barely cover 1 month's rent. For the first time since becoming a father, he truly feared the future. Losing his job felt like the ground had disappeared beneath Jason's feet. Every application he submitted was ignored. Every interview ended with the same polite rejection. Bills piled higher, and although he never let Lily see his fear, every night after she fell asleep, he sat alone at the kitchen table, wondering how much longer he could protect the life he had built for her. Then, one Monday morning, an unfamiliar black limousine stopped outside his apartment. A man in a tailored suit stepped out and handed Jason a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Please give me 1 hour of your time. I believe you may change my company the same way you changed my life. Victoria." Unsure why she wanted to see him, Jason accepted the invitation. When he arrived at Lawson Global's headquarters, employees whispered as he walked through the marble lobby in simple work boots and a faded jacket. He felt completely out of place. Victoria welcomed him personally. Instead of leading him to a glamorous office, she gave him a tour of the company. Along the way, Jason noticed workers who looked exhausted, security guards nobody greeted, and janitors struggling with broken equipment. He quietly pointed out problems that executives had overlooked. He spoke to every employee with respect, remembering their names and thanking them for their work. Victoria watched in silence. She realized that while her executives focused on profits, Jason naturally focused on people. That afternoon, she invited him into the boardroom. The directors expected another business presentation. Instead, Victoria introduced Jason. "This man has no MBA. He owns no expensive suit, but he possesses something our company has been losing: humanity." Some board members objected. Others laughed quietly. Victoria ignored them. She offered Jason a leadership position overseeing employee welfare and community projects. Believing that the company's greatest investment should be its people, Jason hesitated. "I've never managed a corporation," Victoria smiled. "You've managed something much harder. You raised a wonderful daughter with love, dignity, and honesty despite every hardship. Skills can be taught. Character cannot." Jason accepted, not because of the salary, but because it gave him the chance to help others. Months passed. The workplace transformed. Employee satisfaction reached record highs. Staff turnover dropped dramatically. Productivity increased because workers finally felt respected and valued. Even investors noticed the remarkable change. One evening, after a successful charity event for struggling single parents, Victoria and Jason stood outside, watching children laugh and play. Victoria looked at Lily, who was happily handing out toys to younger kids. "She reminds me every day that success means nothing if it isn't shared." Jason nodded. "My daughter taught me that kindness is the only thing that grows when you give it away." Victoria smiled warmly. "I thought I built an empire, She glanced toward Jason and Lily. But you showed me what a real family looks like. Over time, friendship became trust. Trust slowly became love. It wasn't built on wealth or status. It was built on countless small acts of kindness, honesty, and mutual respect. 1 year after that rainy night, Jason and Lily invited Victoria back to the tiny apartment where everything had begun. The furniture was still simple. The walls still displayed Lily's colorful drawings. Jason handed Victoria a neatly folded package. Inside was a brand new blue flannel shirt, identical to the old one she had worn that unforgettable morning. She laughed through tears. "I'll treasure this forever." Lily wrapped her arms around both of them. "This is our lucky shirt," she declared. Jason smiled. "No." He looked at Victoria. "You were the lucky part." Victoria gently took his hand. "And waking up in your shirt was the morning that finally woke up my heart." Sometimes the greatest fortunes are not measured by money. Sometimes they begin with a stranger who stops in the rain, offers a warm meal, and opens the door to a home filled with kindness. Because one act of compassion can change not only a single life, but the future of an entire family.